Yeah, okay, well, welcome everybody to the town board meeting of Tuesday, December 11th, 2018. And we are going to jump right into a continuation of our public hearing, which was open last week. So do we have we're going to need two motions. We're joined here with the planning board. So I guess the town board will first open our public hearing. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We practice on this.
Yeah.
so-
I mean,
Is there a motion for the planning board to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Yep.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we all need work.
Yes.
Who are those guys, by the way?
That's how issues. Okay. All right. So we've had two extensive work sessions. Actually, three extensive. The last week was a public hearing, and then we had a work session this past Friday. We had a work session this evening, and now we're here for our second public hearing. I noticed that really nobody is in this room that wasn't in the work session that we just had, which was taped, the work session. So I will, if it's okay with you, Bob, I'll ask the applicant if they would like to say a few words, and if not, we'll go right into comments from the public.
Good evening, Mr. Supervisor, members of the board, Mr. Chairman, members of the planning board. My name is Mark Weingarten. I'm a partner in the law firm of Delbello, Donnell, and Weingarten, Wise, and Wiedeker. My pleasure to be here this evening at this point, representing SG Summit Field, actually SG Chappaqua B LLC, in connection with the request to defer certain conditions. I won't go at length, as we've had a long meeting inside. I will give a quick summary from our behalf as we understand it, so that we are all on the same page. We are asking now for a deferral of certain conditions just for what we have changed from the last time we were here, which is Phase 1. And Phase 1 does indicate a 40,000 square foot opening of Whole Foods and a 3,000 square foot roughly Chase Bank. And that's it, and that's all we are discussing this evening. I will say that in our opinion, listening inside to all of the conditions that have been imposed, and I will on behalf of Felix Charney, who's here, who you know well, the principal of Summit Greenfield, who's on this side, and also he did ask me to introduce, although you got a chance inside, for Nicole Westco, the president of Whole Foods' office, also here. On behalf of them, I did want to say thank you. There was an awful lot of work that was done in the last week. There was an awful lot of work over the weekend that was done, particularly not just these boards, but your staff and your consultants, and we appreciate that, and we thank you for working with us because of the very tight schedule that we were under, and we appreciate that, so we wanted to say that publicly. But I'll also say that what I did hear inside, if we did a brief summary, would be this. We have a permanent plan that was approved, and we have a right to build, and if we waited to do that, there's a plan that's in place. We now have in front of us a temporary plan to open the Phase 1, which we heard from your expert inside, which not only, in their opinion, is an increase in safety from the current condition, mostly because of the presence of police officers that are going to be there when we open the Whole Foods at 2 or 3 intersections at regular hours, and to be determined by the Newcastle Police when they are there. But also, these are going to be, likely to be, improvements, and at least no worse than the permanent plan with respect to the opening of Whole Foods. And I will mention this, it wasn't mentioned inside. One of the reasons for that are some of the conditions that have been imposed, such as we're at less than 50% occupancy on the office. We can't lease more office until we get to the permanent condition. There is retail that is not part of Phase 1. You're talking 43,000 feet of an improved 120,000 square feet. That's not opening until we come back to you for further discussions and conditions as it was discussed inside. And then, of course, there's also the East Village, which has 91 townhomes attached to it in traffic and all the impacts of that, which we are going through a process with the planning board now. We hope to get an approval, but that too will not be in place before the permanent condition. So I just wanted to point that out to the board, that there is a reason when people say, how can you imagine that if you open the Whole Foods that you can handle this traffic with only the temporary condition? Well, the fact is the temporary condition also virtually mirrors the permanent condition. There isn't very much difference between the two plans other than the creation of a wall, a 2-foot change to the roadway width that we have to do, which we're waiting for, and that's it. So that's our summary of what happened inside, and we would appreciate the ability to have the Whole Foods open. So that's our request. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make one statement also to echo Mr. Weingarten's statement. I'd like to thank our legal team, our staff. You guys have blessed our police. By the way, I don't think I've ever seen or heard of police getting so involved and being such a positive factor in an application. So kudos to you and the chief. Thank you very much, Lieutenant. I think our entire staff has just done a fantastic job, despite the pledge that we would not do this for the holidays for the third or fourth year in a row. This is, Felix has got this Festivus thing about him. He goes here every December, and we do this. But seriously, our staff, our legal team, and the boards have been just fantastic. This has been, I don't know how many hours we put in just with these sessions and phone calls and conference calls, and of course, reading through all the material. There's been a huge amount of dedication from the town board, the planning board, and our wonderful staff. So thank you very much. Felix will be looking with our stockings, seeing what's in there besides coal, et cetera, but I shouldn't say that, of course. Yeah, free coffee, there you go, and broccoli.
That's what he was looking for,
Exactly.
just free
Exactly.
coffee.
So in any event, really, I think, I want to thank everyone because the work has been fantastic.
Yeah, I echo those sentiments. That I don't need to repeat it. It's well said. And the fact that we had 3 planning board and town board joint meetings over the past week, I think it's fair to say that we're all thoroughly sick of each other. So. I thought that would go over better. So, thank you. Okay, so should we entertain a motion?
Well, I think now, any
Oh,
comments
I'm
from the
sorry,
public?
my bad. I just assumed nobody. Are there any comments from the public? Okay. I do want to welcome also Nicole Wesco, president of Whole Foods. Welcome to Chappaqua, Newcastle.
Thank you for having me.
Okay.
Newcastle.
Yes. All right, so maybe the town board will entertain a motion to close the public hearing?
Well, actually, I just have a few thoughts before you close the public hearing. And I want to echo Bob's thanks to everybody who has worked so hard on this, and especially the professionalism and the tireless devotions of our town staff who have been, I think, working around the clock on these plans, and not just this week and this month, but
Yeah, and they still look awake. I mean, it's amazing, so.
But I just wanted to share a few thoughts that I've had about this, because obviously this is not an ordinary project. This is,
You're on, you gotta talk into it.
okay.
You're okay. There's mics in the ceiling now.
Oh, okay, great. Of course, I'm very well fit. This is not an ordinary project. When we have projects that have a few technical details to be worked out, we often say to staff, we'll approve the resolution based on the completion to your satisfaction of these, minor technical details. But we're looking at a project that is probably the biggest thing to happen in Newcastle since Reader's Digest was built in 1937. And I don't think that you can compare the details that we were working on in this work session to any of the kind of minor details that we push off in a normal, in a more ordinary resolution. This is an extraordinary project, and we, instead of having all the road conditions and all the traffic mitigations in place, as we had anticipated when resolutions were passed approving the retail 2 or 3 or 4 years ago, we're looking at a well-thought-out but nonetheless temporary and makeshift traffic plan, which frankly, I don't think ever would have been approved if we were looking at that plan when we were looking at the project originally. So, and I think that it's been stated by other people in other meetings that we sort of need to move forward incrementally, and I would agree with that. And I think that as part of our due diligence to the town, as part of what we as board members of the planning board and the town board owe to the town, is to have a direct eyes on of every phase of this application before the next goes into motion and is brought online. So I think that we're going to be seeing the temporary, correct me, are the police going out and starting the temporary MTP plan tomorrow on Thursday?
Lieutenant?
Tomorrow we will be there, well,
Hopefully there won't be a big influx of people
Right.
tomorrow, but,
my understanding was that everything would be ready for Thursday. So
so,
we will be there tomorrow to help with the traffic control while they cross off and do some more lane markings. But my understanding was Thursday would be going into effect and we would be there when they start.
so Thursday, when the construction is cleared away,
That's
would be
correct.
your first opportunity to start directing traffic and sort of get a lay of the land of these intersections as they will exist in this temporary period, and, have an opportunity to do that before whole lines, before Whole Foods is brought online.
Lieutenant, if you just
Okay.
come to the microphone.
Make sure everybody can hear you.
Sorry, Lieutenant Carroll. Thursday will be the first opportunity we have to view the interim plan
So
in
my
place.
thought would be that we keep the public hearing open and we have a chance for you and all the relevant parties to come back to us on Tuesday when planning board is meeting at any rate, but to to give us an assessment of how it's working and give us any suggestions as to how that could be tweaked before Whole Foods opens. And I think we're looking at a really good opportunity to open Whole Foods. We have a school break coming up. And instead of having the student drivers on the road right across the street when we're bringing this substantial influx of people into our area, I think it would be prudent. I know the push is to open on the 14th or the 15th. I think it would be prudent to wait, see how the traffic management plan goes. I'm not asking you to respond to this necessarily. To come back, have a public hearing, let residents speak to how it's working, and look to open when we've got those student drivers off the road and we have a 10-day stretch to sort of work out all the kinks before the kids come back into the area, the student drivers.
So my thought on that, I think it's a good idea, but I thought about it, and I kind of feel the opposite, that I would like to see it open, see what the issues are, and then use that week to 10 days when we have significantly fewer people here to correct any problems that we're seeing while there aren't as many people on the road. And use that time to really make any adjustments that we think are necessary so that we feel that it's working when everybody comes back.
I agree with that, Lisa, and I would add to what you said is that you get a chance to see how it's working, and then not only look at the past and the present, but then move forward with calculating what the future is going to be when the next 40,000 square feet opens.
I just have a question for council. My understanding is what we're approving under the MPT plan has a series of conditions that need to be met before the TCO is issued. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
So I just want to be very clear that the resolution is not, my understanding of the resolution, I just want to make sure I have it right,
Yes.
okay? That my understanding of the resolution is once these conditions are met, the opening may happen.
Correct, if the building inspector is satisfied, because there are two steps. Right now, under the current conditions, the building inspector cannot issue a TCO, temporary certificate of occupancy, until the off-site road improvements have been completed. The boards are considering modifying their land use approvals to modify that condition to permit it to occur, and that would then allow the building inspector to issue the certificate of occupancy. So there are two phases that need to be
So
accomplished.
tomorrow is the 12th.
The first is that the conditions set forth in this phase one we've discussed.
Correct.
Need to be satisfied.
Need to be satisfied.
And then the building inspector needs to be satisfied to issue his
All right,
TCO.
so I just want to be, because we do have the CEO of Whole Foods here. If we are thinking that this resolution is an approval to open on the 15th, it is conditional on all of these things. It's conditional on the lighting, it's conditional on the crosswalk striping, it's conditional on the, barriers being upgraded. It's conditional on this, it's conditional on that. So I just want to make sure that in this, I understand this is very rushed because, everybody has a lot of pressure to make this happen. I just want to make.
Yeah, the burden is on them to satisfy. They said they can, but if they don't, then they can't open.
Right, so my concern, going back to sort of the idea that 1,000 people accepted an event that's not gonna happen tomorrow, my concern is that if we pass this resolution, all of the other things have to happen by the 15th before, in essence, the marketing of the Whole Foods can start. Because, and I think, it's almost like you have a soft launch and then a hard launch. Because that 15th may actually turn out to be the 17th. That 15th may turn out to be the 13th. That 15th may turn out to be something else. And so, just as we're kind of talking about this as a group, and I know you need to stock the shelves, do all this other kind of stuff too, but as we're talking about as a group, I think what we should do is really kind of consider this first opening almost an unpublicized event, because I don't really know what day all of these conditions are gonna be satisfied.
I would also know that one of the conditions discussed during phase one is that it would open on a Saturday, so as to mitigate the traffic impact.
Howard, to the points that you're raising, I think that's exactly why I think it should come back to the board, to both boards, so that we can satisfy ourselves as part of the due diligence that we should be exercising on such a significant project, such an impactful project in this town. We should be satisfied that the conditions are met, and this is no reflection on my confidence in town staff, who I think have done a tremendous job, and all the consultants and all the legal teams and everything, but it is, we are the boards, we're the ones who have made the approvals, we're the ones who are going to amend the approvals if we so decide to do so. And I think that that's exactly why we should have direct eyes on it, to make sure that we are satisfied that all those conditions have been met. And even today, when we were talking in the work session, just taking, for example, the pedestrian pathway and that the east side of Route 117 and the barriers that we want to see put in place for pedestrian safety. If we hadn't had that work session tonight, none of that would have come out. I think we haven't seen a final plan on that. I think we need to be able to have eyes on a final plan before any approval is given to amend the resolution for the opening of Whole Foods.
I think Sheila has it right, and the prudent thing would have been to hold off. But in response to this having eyes on it, I think we have that opportunity, because we're still going to have the two boards, a special meeting to look at this resolution. So what we can do is require the reports to come in, hopefully in advance of our special meeting. I don't anticipate that we'd have a special meeting before Friday.
Thursday night?
Thursday night or Friday, yeah.
Right, so just the next step is that tonight, if you're going to take any action, would be to consider authorizing respective council to prepare the resolutions, because you've had some moving parts tonight, so we have to
Right.
finalize
But
those
to,
resolutions.
but to Sheila's point, what we could do
Yes.
is we could, at that meeting,
Yes.
when we consider the resolution, we could have the benefit of those reports. It might only be a day and a half, it might not be 2 full days, but I think that would be a prudent thing to do, and I think since we have that kind of mechanism that's going to be in place, we can use that opportunity. I think,
Bob, I'm sorry, I just want to clarify something to make sure that I understand. When you say the reports, you're talking about the status of where they are in terms of meeting the conditions?
well, conditions and also the Thursday and Friday report, the police are going to be out monitoring and telling us what's going on with the modeling of the
Okay,
MPT.
so both a kind of an update on where they
Yeah.
are in the conditions
Yeah.
and then the police
Yeah.
response. Okay.
I mean, I don't think there's, Sheila's raised an issue here, I think it's very important, and, you can't ever be faulted by being overly cautious and being overly safe. The issue here is, I personally, since, in the last 3 hours, 4 hours, have been more developments in terms of pedestrian crossing light and other changes that have come through, and the applicant's willingness to work with us and pay for the additional police, et cetera. And we've heard from our consultant that this is actually safer than what we have now. It's difficult to go against when your consultant is saying that, but at the same token, I think what Sheila's raised here is a very good issue, and I think we have that opportunity before we actually approve a resolution to get that report in from the police, from the traffic folks, and see what it looks like. I guess that would mean probably a Friday.
We have to schedule it so
I
that
understand.
everybody hear it, yeah.
I mean, I'm getting way ahead of us because we haven't,
We haven't gotten that
we
far,
haven't
but
directed or done anything else yet. So there is an opportunity, it seems to me, however cursory folks may think it might be, it would afford us, I think, some opportunity to do that.
the later you had the meeting, the more you could be
More data.
insisting on a clean slate that they're
Yes.
ready.
I'm sorry, I didn't follow that?
Well, the later you have the meeting, the
More
more you can be,
opportunity.
more opportunity for the applicant to eliminate
Ah.
all the preconditions that they, and come in and say, it's satisfied, we're ready.
And then if they're not, we could attach them contingent
Well,
as
yeah,
long
the
as they
conditions
come
will
in
be
with
there,
a
but it'd be
hard
nice-
date when they're gonna get done.
Well, if they're not done,
It's either Saturday or the next Saturday.
right, if they're
That's
not
what we've
done,
been
we
talking.
can't pass the resolution that the building inspector can
Yeah.
use to issue the TCO.
Good point.
So your first step is to consider whether you want to close the public hearing.
Right, or whether we're finished talking up here.
Yeah. Well, once you close the hearing, you can still have
Yeah,
discussions
yeah,
after, yes.
Well, there's nobody here for public comment, but are we available Thursday night? Does Thursday night work for
If,
both boards?
if I may, before we move forward, I have some additional conditions I'd like to propose to the applicant. So, I want to make sure, first of all, it was incredibly meaningful to me that our traffic expert both said that every possible safety precaution that he could imagine that could be included in a Phase 1 MPT plan is now included in this plan, with the exception of the concrete barriers along the pedestrian path, and that will be something that I think absolutely needs to be included in the plan. That was very meaningful to me, and what was also very meaningful, as the applicant's attorney pointed out, is the fact that our independent traffic expert agreed with the findings of the applicant that the site will be made safer when the MPT plan, interim MPT plan goes into place than the current conditions are. So both of those are very much weighing on me as I'm considering whether or not we ought to be moving forward. In addition to the things that we discussed today, I want to make sure that we follow through with having a mechanism in place that allows us to phase this in such a way that we are approving only the opening of Whole Foods and Chase, and that we have a clear choice point about whether to move forward with any additional retail. I think that needs to be off the table until we've had the opportunity to review the impacts of Whole Foods and Chase opening. And so making sure that that's a key piece of whatever we put together is really important.
We're only doing.
Yeah, it is in there, it is in there.
We're only approving. we
It's
don't
not
approve
in there
phase one.
today, it needs to be in there.
Well, the resolution,
It'll be
They
in the
haven't been prepared
resolution
yet.
that we talked
Exactly.
about.
the resolution, it would only be for phase one.
The second thing, as we discussed earlier, I think we need to make sure that our resolution includes a condition around police officers at the 3 locations that we identified earlier today, and making sure that they're available from 7 to 7. Earlier today, I had conversations with the Chappaqua Fire Department as well as the Chappaqua Volunteer Ambulance Corps, both of whom raised points that they would like the applicant to address. The Chappaqua Fire Department needs to get into the Whole Foods building to be able to review the evacuation plans, where things are located, et cetera. It's an easy fix, but one that absolutely needs to happen before they open. The Volunteer Ambulance Corps requested additional wayfinding signage within the location site, so that they know where they're going when they get a call that's in the 300 building, et cetera. As I discussed earlier, I think it's important for the town to be looped into all of the marketing materials that come from Whole Foods. And thank you, I appreciate your agreement to do that with us. The next thing I wanted us to consider is I would like to put back on the table a license agreement between the town and Summit Greenfield for the use of the electric shuttle that the town has purchased. So one way that we may be able to reduce traffic volumes, particularly for employees and residents at Chappaqua Crossing, is to encourage them to use that electric shuttle. I think we need to have an agreement with Summit Greenfield about that. And I think both Summit Greenfield and Whole Foods need to be active participants in marketing that, such that we possibly deflect some of the traffic from the B line and that pedestrian pathway onto our electric shuttle. And lastly, I don't think this is something that can be included as a condition, but I think it's important to note that, the town has come to realize that the gift of the Chappaqua Performing Arts Center comes with significant building and infrastructure improvements that need to be made in order to make this into truly a world-class performing arts center. And so we would like to request your assistance, Summit Greenfield, with all of the outstanding issues there around ADA compliance, around parking, moving the electrical box, removing that berm, making sure that we have all of those things buttoned up, as well as perhaps your consideration with helping us with some of the things inside the site, like lighting, sound quality, dressing rooms, et cetera. I'm not the expert in this area, but I think there's a lot that we could do together there. So those are some additional things I'd like to put on the table.
I have some comments, and I might as well, since is everyone else spoken? My turn?
Go ahead.
All right, super. One of the reasons, Felix, why I ran was because I was very concerned about Chappaqua Crossing. I live off of 117. And I was concerned what would come, and I sometimes joke, something wicked this way comes, but I'm hopeful, and I know you're very sincere, and it's certainly not your fault where we are, and you've been extremely diligent well before my time. But I am much more comfortable now than I was certainly years ago, but even last week, hearing from our own consultant telling us that this is, as you voiced, a much safer plan, in fact, a safe plan. And, not every single pole is down, but some of the more intrusive ones are. There are steps that you are willing to take which were not required of you until recently, meaning that you're agreeing to, such as that barrier along where the bus stop is. You are considering, and if in fact ultimately purchasing, if possible, the land, neighboring adjacent land to help a sight line. There are many steps that you have pursued, and I think that, let me phrase it, I know that we're all partners here within reason, and you want to see it succeed, and you want the town to succeed, so I'm grateful for that. Being an obstructionist serves no one any greater good, so I am comfortable, at least for now, in light of the fact that this will come back to us as opposed to the building inspector alone for review. I am comfortable that we've looked at the numbers, and nothing is going to be perfect, nothing is going to be easy, and I can be assured that there's going to be some headaches for everyone in town, and myself included, living off of 117. But it's coming, it's happening, we need to make sure it's done in the most appropriate way, and I'm comfortable now, and should that not work out, we'll have the opportunity to review it before Lifetime or anyone else comes in, that we need to take that step. And I'm grateful that also we've extended the police presence to now to the 20th, up to 3 police officers, which Summit Greenfield will cover that expense for. So thank you for working with us. I'm certainly ready to take that next step, and I appreciate your diligence, and I'd like to see things move forward. Last but not least, if I didn't say it already, I'm grateful that while it's certainly not mandated, you are open to and actively open to helping us in the intersection of Whippoorwill and 117, that southbound blind spot, which is just really dangerous with fast-moving cars. So thank you very, very much.
On that note,
No, I have a comment or two, sorry. I think the speed limit going through from Cowden to Whippoorwill should be reduced as much as reasonable. There is, I've been told, but I'm not sure it's true, so we need our traffic engineers to help us, that if the speed is more moderate, then the queuing is less of a problem under certain conditions. I don't know what those are, but I think that it'll make it safer by going slower. And then secondly, trying to think of all parties involved here, while I appreciate the, trying to put a moratorium on future near-term office kind of increases, I would think that there should be at least a statement that it's not absolute if the conditions can be demonstrated, that something modest in the interim can be done successfully without upending all of the other work that's been done relative to traffic. safety.
Well, I'd like to make a couple comments. I think it's just really, really unfortunate that, that this has been delivered by the consequence of events beyond apparently anybody's control, that this has arrived on our joint tables here. Actions of the state or inactions of the state, I think, is a real shame, and I think that it would have been better if the state was taking responsibility for that and solving these problems for us. Somehow it ends up on our table now, and we have to answer for this condition, and it's really tough. I also think that the notion that that the condition that's out there now, there was a statement about the improvements we're going to be putting in place are safer than the condition that's out there now. There's a little bit of irony here, because the condition that's out there now were caused by the applicant starting construction before the applicant could actually, within the season normal for completing construction, those things could be achieved and done. So we're in a condition which actually, for most folks in town, approaches a permanent condition. It's going to be, there are disputes about this, whether it's going to be April or whether it's going to be June. I don't think anybody knows, because nobody has made a commitment. So I think that it's a little bit ironic that we're being asked to mitigate something that, again, we aren't responsible for, that it was, I think, a mistaken judgment of the applicant to begin the construction at this point in time, to put us in this position. There's also a statement that was made by council about there's nothing different between the MTP plan, other than the work on the, I think, the west side of the road, the retaining wall. Nothing different between the MTP plan and the final plan, and that's just not true, because in the final plan is a left-hand turn onto Roaringbrook Road. And that's, to me, that's a significant difference, and I could be wrong, but I think the traffic studies show that. I have a problem with, notwithstanding all of that, especially the position we've been put in, we're here to help if we can, responsibly. And we always have been. I think that Felix would attest to that. I have a problem in that I've always been told by council, Les, we've been working with Les I've been working with him on this board for 15 years, off and on. And one thing he always said is, be sure the record is straight. Because if you don't, you're in danger of making judgments which are based on whim, which are not based on fact. I think there's a hole in the record, and I think it's in the traffic plan. You've been put under terrific pressure to sort of catch up on this, and you guys have been working night and day, and I really appreciate it. But I think there is a hole in the traffic record with respect to, and we talked about it tonight, what I think are different trip generation rates for this sub-regional national brand anchor, and everybody is so hopeful that they're going to succeed, and I believe that they will. But I think that we need to understand what the impacts of that success are going to be to us. And I also am a little bit nervous or uncomfortable with your hour designations for the peak hour trips. There's school and then there's the highway. I don't live on this side of town, I live on the other side of town, but like I said in the previous meeting, I drove over here at 3 o'clock this afternoon just to see, and I got in a queue on northbound 117, and it took 6 minutes, and that's probably 3 or 4 light cycles to get through that intersection, and that's before Whole Foods. So I would like to be certain that we have addressed the peak hour, the special conditions, which are the conditions that people see behind their windshields every day. Not that they see in a set of drawings that come out of algorithms that go into a machine. Those are all very helpful. But more important, the real facts are, the real conditions are the ones that people live with every day. And I think we need a better description of what those are today by looking at peak background traffic and what we expect them to be with Whole Foods opening. I would like to see that before I think we can move forward.
Okay, Greg, did you have anything? No. I had a couple quick things that very quick, and they're just details. We didn't talk about snow clearing on the sidewalks that we're creating. who's going to be responsible for that? Is that going to be DPW? Will that be the applicant? And what's the maintenance agreement on that? What's the responsibility? So we need to identify that. There was some mention, in I think it was Phase 2, or maybe the miscellaneous area, about the applicant cooperating with working on getting the county bus system to work with a new site inside the site. I think that the applicant should be actively seeking it along with the town, not just cooperating. So I think it's something that should be on the applicant to move forward. Obviously, it can't be something that we're going to hold up Phase 1 over, but it's something that needs to be looked at and I think done. And I think that was it in terms of minor details that I failed to mention before in the work session. So if there are no questions or issues from the public, we'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing for the planning board.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And we will entertain a motion for the town board to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And now we need a motion to authorize the town attorneys to prepare a resolution to approve the applicant's request to modify the finding statement and for certain conditions surrounding Phase 1.
And just to make clear, we're not voting on that resolution, we're just authorizing you to
Preparation.
draft a resolution.
That is correct.
Review.
So in other
The
words,
authorization would certainly indicate there's a consensus to move forward with that when you meet, assuming you're satisfied with the conditions that are set forth in there.
You'll circulate that.
You'll get it in
forward.
advance.
And I think,
And the conditions that we're going to hear from the police and the traffic folks on the MPT testing that we're going to see on Thursday and Friday.
You guys use the mics?
Sorry.
I can't hear you, the
Yeah, we're-
HVAC went on.
Oh, okay.
oh, sorry.
Can I just ask a point of, is this a joint resolution or two separate?
Two separate resolutions.
But I think
Well,
the
the town
intention is
board
that
needs-
they would be virtually identical, if not
Be in
identical.
sync with each other.
Right, the town board needs to act first because it needs to authorize modifying the conditions of the secret mitigation measures, which then allows the planning board pursuant to a site plan to modify its site plan approval resolution.
And the town board, the planning board's modifications go beyond the off-site traffic improvements, relate to certain administrative matters in connection with the furnishing of certain bonds and as-built plans.
Just to clarify, the draft resolutions that are coming out, there will be two. One that is separate, that we will be reviewing for our own purposes.
Correct.
Correct.
So will either of those resolutions specify an opening date, or will it be a
No,
sort of an if-when?
It'll be a
If all these
Saturday.
conditions are satisfied, and if there's a Saturday that coincides with these
Building
conditions?
inspector.
That's correct.
So,
and it would be the planning board's resolution.
oh, that would be our resolution as opposed to the town board's resolution? Yeah. So, you're proposing that we have a meeting on Thursday night to look at this resolution and to possibly approve it. The police will have been on the ground that day and will be coming in to report to us as we're having the
Police will
meeting,
be
because
on
they're
the
gonna be
ground.
on the ground from 7 to 7 at least.
I'm hoping the police will not only be on the ground that day, but I'm hoping you're going to be there tomorrow.
We're gonna be there tomorrow.
Well, they have to be there tomorrow.
Yeah, but tomorrow's a construction day, so it's
Right.
very different.
Doesn't count.
It
We'll
doesn't
be
really
there
count.
tomorrow, but the MPT will be in place all day Thursday.
Will the conditions laid upon Summit Greenfield be ready for Thursday morning, is my question, with the new pedestrian barriers, et cetera? So,
Mike?
yeah, we'll be there.
The lighting and.
If it's possible, I don't think it can be done by Thursday. To get a real,
So you want a resolution, but I'm not sure if the work will be done and we can actually give a true.
right, I
Should we
think it
ask-
needs to be Friday if it's to be a real test. You need at least a day and a half of it.
We have, most of the components already on site in terms of the VMSs and all of that. We can get either the plastic barriers for the different protection on the Annandale side for that path.
Right.
And we just need to just confirm with your own consultant in terms of the exact lane width. Are we going to reduce that one 13-foot travel lane to 12 feet so we can bring in that concrete barrier or plastic barrier on the Annandale roadside for the path? And we would just need confirmation on that. We can stripe that out tomorrow and have everything in place by the end of the day tomorrow.
And will you have the lights to be able to put them there tomorrow night?
We have lights on site. Every piece of equipment that we require to get this MPT plan completed is on site.
Because that would give us an evening with the striping to be able
Yeah.
to see that.
understood.
For
I'm
clarity,
sorry, with regard to the lane width, and I apologize, I don't remember your name. Dawn, thank you. With regard to the reduction of the lane width, we have an internal disagreement here. Was it your recommendation to stick with the 13-foot lane width, or do you recommend the 12-foot lane width?
to install the barrier.
We can do the 12-foot lane width.
Ken's not the question, which was a better one, did you?
Right.
He preferred.
We had a preference for the 13-foot.
But then I thought for the safety of pedestrians, you thought we could go to 12 with the protective barriers.
The barrier
That's correct.
Okay, so,
Can you have a 13 with the barriers?
sure. Small, well.
Within barriers.
Different barriers.
We have to see what barriers they're proposing.
We discussed different barrier options.
When can you get an answer so that the applicant can move forward with either striping a 13 or a 12?
Tomorrow morning by 9 a.m.
Tomorrow morning by 10 a.m., that's a great idea.
He said 9.
Yeah, he said 9.
I mean, there's nothing stopping you, for example, from temporarily these
real.
barriers, especially for the plastic ones, you make it 12 feet,
No, we-
and then you can extend it back out to 13 feet with a different
Right.
type of barrier that's not as intrusive.
Yeah, we do agree that 12-foot is workable, but we want to make sure the continuity through the work zone is consistent in the width.
Right, but what I'm-
Receiving lane. and-
What I'm saying is you could do one and ultimately change, nothing would prevent it from changing if you think it's not appropriate or not working
Yes, sir.
the way you want it to.
Okay, so should we go to, if that's the case, can we safely go to 12 right now so they can proceed? Or do you want to wait and get, I think you want to wait and talk to your compatriots?
That we hired an expert.
Why don't we
I think
wait
by the
and we'll
time
get
it
your
comes-
answer by 9 a.m. tomorrow morning?
But I think by the time we have the resolution ready for you, the answer will be contained in those drawings and those plans to be approved by you.
Because it's circulated before.
And circulate beforehand, yes.
All right.
I think we need to give them time to go back, look at the plans, speak to the applicant, and
Just get
then we'll get the answer.
When is this next meeting going to take place?
That's up to the board. The earliest we could do it, but we need time to prepare a resolution. It has to be Thursday afternoon.
Thursday at 4?
But then we won't be able to get a report from the
Yeah,
traffic
please.
police. They won't have even spent a full day out on the road.
John, did you want to say something?
Right.
So you have to come up here?
Right, certainly the planning board could meet that afterwards. This would be the town board allowing the conditions to be modified.
We have to vote on it, allowing it to go to you folks to then make your determination if it's satisfied. Is that correct?
Yes, town board has to vote first.
So we can,
And you have to
I'm
manage your
available
schedule,
Thursday at
right?
4.
Yeah, we can meet Friday. That's Friday.
So we can meet on Friday. I think we probably should meet on Friday. if we have our
So the
schedule.
town board is Thursday at 4, and the planning board is Friday morning?
The draft
Yes,
resolution.
yes. I can.
And send the report.
Let's not going to be.
Bob, can we do it first thing, 9 o'clock, if we're gonna meet Friday morning?
Hi, John.
I think it should be later because we should try to get the benefit of the report from the police and have that in place.
Yeah, so
Do an
I think it'll be an afternoon one.
Oh, you don't.
No?
That's how I
Apparently
read
that
the
was
body
not a
language.
popular answer.
it's cutting it awful close.
Yes.
But, Lieutenant, you can come in Friday morning, right? With a report?
Absolutely.
For one day.
Day and a half, but yes.
But our conditions are 2 days.
Thursday and-
We're saying in
and
our,
Wednesday night.
we've been talking about having 2 days of reports. So now we're not going to have 2 days of reports.
I
Well,
actually
that's not what I
think-
understood, so.
I actually think one weekday, one weekend probably would be helpful, but
I thought it was a 2-day test, Dick.
I didn't hear that.
not.
I heard all sorts of things.
Yeah.
0 days, 1 day, and 2 days.
Could you meet Friday morning? Is that possible?
We could meet Friday morning, I think. I think if we can meet Friday in the afternoon,
Friday afternoon is
what
better
time do you have?
Friday afternoon.
You have a conflict?
Yeah, I do.
Not available Friday.
No, it wouldn't be for us, though.
Okay.
You're good for Thursday.
How late can we do it?
Well, I guess we can do it about 2:30.
Is that okay, or will it work?
Huh?
Will that work for you?
Do it
Make
early.
it work.
If it were a little earlier, would that be better for you?
No, earlier, would be- well, earlier in the morning would be better, middle of the day is a problem, so.
Okay. Will 2:30 work? Will that work for you, Greg?
I can make it.
2:30 on Friday then, okay. 2:30 on Friday.
John?
I just had one suggestion about the lane striping with the 12-foot. If we stripe it 12 and we can get more room out of it, we can push the barrier over. Just the fact there's a line there, it doesn't make the fact that you do have the utilization of 13 feet, if in fact we could get that. So if all the striping is being done tomorrow, it may be better just to stripe it at 12, which is a legal lane, which you could do plain. And then if the barrier can move back a bit, then we can get to 13 operational type width. I think that's a compromise that,
I think starting at 12 is me, obviously, because I'm the one who wants it there.
well, you want 11, so I mean, we had 11 before. so-
No, he turned flexible on it.
He turned flexible on it.
I still think I'm right on 11, but I guess I'm not. So, but I guess I have to be happy with 12. So I'm happy with 12, and
Okay.
I think that would be good.
Is it Stan, you good with that?
I just texted Lou, he's good with 12 too.
Okay, fine.
Ah,
We have 12.
magic of technology.
But if they move the
Thank
barrier
you.
over and you get another foot, it's
So-
still right.
Ms. Wesco, can you just please make sure you, if you haven't done it, just get Lieutenant Carroll that information?
Yes, and I just wanted to let you know the Facebook invite has been canceled.
Thank you.
Sorry.
So, Lisa, you want to make this motion?
Sure. So I move to authorize the town attorney to prepare a resolution to approve the Summit Greenfield or the applicant's request to modify the finding statement and certain conditions to Phase 1.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, do we have a motion from the planning board in connection with this matter and
Did we get a little card to read?
We wrote it down, you
read it
did
for
the
us.
same thing.
Oh, this is gonna be a little different.
Take a look.
Just make sure you substitute an
This is your moment, Greg.
A little different though.
Greg, it's a motion to authorize the special counsel to the planning board to prepare a resolution which would modify prior planning board resolutions in connection with the authorization of the building inspector to issue a temporary CO before certain conditions are satisfied.
So moved.
That's not what she said.
No, but ours is a little bit more complicated.
I know. It always is.
Yes.
We make it that way.
All right, so
So we have a motion?
need a second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Why don't we ask, we'll do a roll vote in case there are people who would like to be on the record either abstaining or against. So Greg, you gonna lead off?
To prepare a resolution,
Yes.
yes. All right.
Okay, Sheila?
This is just for preparing the, I'm just gonna abstain.
Okay,
Yes.
and aye. So 4 and then 1 abstention. Okay. I think that concludes the business
Thanks
at
for
hand.
coming. If anyone wants to stay, we have free coffee.
The town board still has its meeting.
Yeah, we
Well,
did.
free whiskey. We can free whiskey. We can do that.
So, is there a motion?
Yes, from somebody.
Oh, yeah. So moved.
Motion to close the planning board meeting?
Chairman Kirkwood is going to be supplying. Aye. Supervisor.